Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering woke media panic as the Acolyte audience score plummets. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Well, the Acolyte is not being well received. I'm sure there are some people that absolutely love the Acolyte, the new Star Wars Disney Plus series. But mostly, if you ever had any interest in Star Wars at any point, this is not the series for you. But the media doesn't like that. From Forbes, the Acolyte's 15% audience score is embarrassing for the audience scores. That means if you don't like it, you ought to be embarrassed. Don't worry if you produce this and nobody likes it. If you don't like it, it's all your fault. Where have we heard that one before? From National Review, the Acolyte bastardizes Star Wars. Good takedown of the Acolyte from National Review. You don't need to see a show like this to know what the show is about. It's enough to see the coverage, not just the negative coverage. It's enough to see headlines from the producer of the show talking about what she did and why she did it, and then additional commentary. Am I going to sit and watch the Acolyte and absolutely punish myself so I can comment accurately on each of the changes in plot and story structure in the Acolyte? I'm not going to watch it. I didn't watch it. I'm not going to watch it. And the people that are reviewing this show negatively, for the most part, probably haven't watched it. Maybe a few of them have. But you don't need to watch it because they tell you what they're doing in the show. They tell you how they've changed the Force. They tell you what their agenda is. And then you see articles critiquing the dialogue, which is so below standard, even if the show was not intended to replace the patriarchy with the matriarchy, it still wouldn't be worth watching. I talked recently about Cloak and Dagger in another video. The writer had that in his desk drawer for several years before the show was picked up, about 5 years. So it was written like well before trying to make an agenda happen. While they inserted some things in the first season to acknowledge and promote the social justice agenda, it was very limited. So it was pretty well crafted. The second season was really not good at all. It was quite terrible. Just because Disney owns Lucasfilm, it doesn't mean you owe them some level of respect if they're not going to give you the respect to honor the brand. Buying a brand doesn't mean you own the brand. Sure, financially it does, but you don't own it in the mind of the culture. You have to honor and respect the things that you own and control, or you're going to get outright dismissed by culture. And of course, many of the reviewers are going to see what they're trying to promote as Star Wars and say, this isn't Star Wars, it's completely nonsensical. You can try to dismiss the audience when you're producing television shows and movies and waste hundreds of millions of dollars on production, or you can respect the audience so that they don't dismiss you. Most of the audience for Star Wars is, of course, dismissing the Acolyte. And coming from Forbes, the Acolyte's 15% audience score is embarrassing for the audience scores. So if you don't like their show, it's your fault. That level of entitlement does not work in commerce. It does not work at all in business. You need to produce at some level. Yes, if you're some sort of a junior in an organization and they decided they wanted to go all diversity or something, yes, they can hire you and not hold you accountable for what you're doing and just say, look, we need to have a certain diverse employee base. Let's do that. But diversity, equity, and inclusion for brands doesn't really work with consumers. Consumers want what they want. It doesn't work, and Disney is starting to realize that. They just had a big success with Inside Out 2 because Inside Out 2 actually did well at the box office. But you know what the controversy was around Inside Out 2? There was no controversy around Inside Out 2. So the audience felt comfortable going to see the movie and bringing their children to the movie. Unlike all the other animated Disney projects that audiences said, no, we don't trust you. We don't want to see your binary characters. We don't want to see your non-binary characters. We don't want to see your gay kisses or whatever else that you're trying to push through this movie that's not organic and natural to the story. And so the non-woke projects actually work. The diversity entitled projects from Disney do not work. Disney's diversity approach bombing with Marvel and Star Wars female fans. Females don't enjoy this. They don't want this. This is not what they're trying to identify with. Boys' properties turn into girls' properties, but not just girls' properties, Radical feminist girls' properties don't work. It's not economically viable. Coming from Forbes, while Star Wars has had many controversies in the Disney era, viewers have now mobilized a fleet of TIE bombers to obliterate user scores of the Acolyte wherever possible, namely on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. They previously reported that this started up right at release, as the Acolyte quickly became the lowest audience-rated Star Wars project besides the infamous Holiday Special. Although the Holiday Special I've heard people prefer to the Acolyte. I have seen the Holiday Special. I didn't think it was all that bad. Now the Acolyte's former 33% score has dipped below the special's 20% score and is all the way down to 15%. At a certain point, this is just absurd, and it says a lot more about the viewers than it does about the quality of the show itself, which has barely even gotten started, now just 3 episodes in. Forbes is not even going to entertain a debate that this is not review bombing. A 15% score is barely more than a third of the last most controversial Disney Star Wars project, The Last Jedi. Nothing is even close except that Holiday Special. There's also how fast this happened. For instance, Ahsoka only had 5,000 reviews in on Rotten Tomatoes after being out for months, while The Acolyte has aired 3 episodes in 2 weeks and has 10,000 reviews in. The last season of The Mandalorian only has 2,500 reviews in. The beloved Andor, 5,000 reviews total, years later. Rotten Tomatoes has previously tried to curb review bombing in the wake of what happened with Captain Marvel's release, verifying people had watched the movie before reviewing. But there has been no way to enforce such a system with TV, so here we are. The issue is you've dismissed the Star Wars audience, so the Star Wars audience is dismissing you. It's a difficult concept to accept, but just because you can make terrible Star Wars shows to push a political agenda, it doesn't mean that the Star Wars audience has to accept it. They don't. That's why a bad restaurant goes out of business. People stop frequenting that restaurant, and Disney knows this. They're well aware of it. They've been trying to wait it out. They're very sophisticated. Go back to Incredibles 2. And I love to refer to Incredibles 2 because it did have an agenda. It was pushing a little propaganda there in the story, but it was well structured. It was well executed. And people liked the brand, so sure, they were able to push that. That's not true with what they've been doing ever since. It's all garbage, so people won't watch it. They certainly don't identify it with anything that they really ever cared about or anything they were ever really interested in. So no, they're not going to accept it because it doesn't do anything for the audience if they don't actually like it, especially when it contrasts with something else that they liked in the past or was inspirational in the past. Forbes continues, why is this happening? There are a bunch of dimensions to this, and none of them are good. There is absolutely a racial and gender component to this. No, there absolutely is not a racial or gender component to criticizing something as terrible. The problem has nothing to do with gender or sexual preferences. The problem is when you replace storytelling with race, gender, and sexual preferences, and now the practice and promotion of witchcraft, rather than the inspiring spirituality of Star Wars. A clip from star Amandla Stenberg about making white people cry was shared tens of thousands of times online, taking out of context from an interview years earlier about her film, The Hate U Give. Showrunner Leslye Headland has started many YouTube thumbnails lambasting the woke nature of the series. This is the main reason for the surge since episode 3 aired, where fans believe the show has broken canon or destroyed the lore of Anakin Skywalker by implying that, like Anakin, the twins are virgin forced birth. You have to respect fans. You can call fans toxic. You can say, oh, all these toxic fans, they don't want to accept our changing of all of these brands. Change the brands as much as you want. Change the stories as much as you want. Destroy the value of the brands. If it's so far out of context with what people expected when they saw the first Star Wars movie, then it's not on brand and people are going to be disappointed. Even if you have an excellent fish sandwich, when you tell someone who likes to eat cheeseburgers they need to now eat a fish sandwich, and they're bigots and toxic fans if they don't enjoy that fish sandwich and tell everyone how great it is, it's not going to work. But the 15% score is embarrassing, not for the show, but for those review bombing it to frankly a laughable degree. Forbes is not even the Acolyte's biggest fan, but the worst Star Wars project by an order of magnitude in the history of the series? Yes, Yes, if you go that far off of what fans expect, it's going to be considered the worst. People are not just going to continue to trust you and follow along after years and years and years of disappointments and nonsensical interviews that talk about how things need to change and things need to be different and we need to promote matriarchy instead of patriarchy. It's really more than enough. And if you do this, you better expect that people are going to outright dismiss the project, give it a 1 star, and just let you know, no, we're not interested in what you're doing. It's called feedback. Forbes goes on to say, and you're review bombing it, and it just so happens to be one mostly starring black women? Starring cast characters with black skin or white skin or any other kind of skin, green, purple skin, that's not a shield against criticism. You can complain about it. You can say, oh, you're a racist if you don't like this. Oh, you're a misogynist if you don't like this. Oh, you don't approve of our sexuality if you don't like this. No, you need to make things that people like or they're going to criticize it. There's no automatic shield of defense that can protect you from criticism if you're a certain skin color or a certain gender. Forbes continues, this whole situation is a parody of the modern toxic fan base of this series. And if you want to disguise it as being upset about canon, then it shows a distinct lack of understanding of both the material of the show and the wider universe. Look, millions of Star Wars fans, by definition, are not wrong. If you're not going to produce things that Star Wars fans want to see, you're going to get criticized. If you're not going to produce things that Marvel fans want to see, you're going to get criticized. And if that criticism results in non-viewership, negative ratings, social media you don't like to see, YouTube videos you don't like to see, woke media is just going to have to learn to man up and accept it. Because when you're the producer of something that you're trying to sell, whether it's selling movie tickets or selling a subscription to a streaming service or selling advertising on a show that's free to broadcast, if you can't get the interest of the audience for whatever reason, it's the fault of the producer. You're supposed to go into the market and see what people seem like they would be interested in. Sometimes you can come up with something so original and so fascinating that you can attract audience. But that's not the case with established brands. When you have an established brand, you need to satisfy the existing customers. It's not about Star Wars. It's not about Marvel even. It's not about Pixar. It's marketing. It's basic 101 marketing. And if you want to say, excuse me, I have something important to say, it doesn't matter what you like. It only matters what I want to say. Like, no, that's a level of entitlement that does not go outside of childhood. Disney can't spend hundreds of millions of dollars on projects and expect them to get a refrigerator mother type of response of saying, hey, look, I have things I want to say with your favorite franchise. I want to convince you of how important I am and how you should support the matriarchy over the patriarchy. It's not going to work. You can keep doing it over at Disney, but you'll notice it's not going to work. But Disney won't continue to do this. Not this same way, because it's not resonating. It's not working. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, Inside Out 2 did very well. No controversy with that movie. And also from Cosmic Book News, as well as Inside Out 2 did. And it's doing great numbers. Deadpool and Wolverine actually looks like it'll be even bigger. From Cosmic Book News, Deadpool and Wolverine box office estimates massive $200 million plus opening weekend. Numbers are comparable to Spider-Man No Way Home, which opened to $260 million. This will kill their ridiculous woke destruction of brands. They're ridiculous. Look, we're going to take your male brands and take them from patriarchy-oriented to matriarchy-oriented. It's not going to continue because it's too big of an embarrassment. Woke media might not like it. Passive men that want to follow the matriarchy might not like it. But it's the exact thing that's been negatively affecting Disney's stock price. And now it's been made obvious if they just go a little bit lighter on pushing their agenda, they'll get to push their agenda eventually. But they need to dial back the nonsense. They will do that. They're well aware of it. In the meantime, of course, don't support what you don't like. Support what you do like. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.